from the city's wastewater treatment plant into the Concho River. After it is flowed down that natural pipeline, the water will be recouped farther downstream. From there, it will be piped to the water treatment plant, where it will be treated further to drinking standards.
That's water really that the city already has. We're just being able to make better use of it. So it's really a win-win for the city.
On September 18th, the City Council unanimously agreed to pursue state permits that will ensure the water is treated to high standards before it's released into the river. Prior to recommending the Concho River project, engineers and city staff studied 24 possible water supplies. Those included surface water, groundwater, and direct reuse. The experts and city officials concluded the Concho River water project, quote, checks all the boxes. That is, it is a reliable and cost-effective source. It will produce water with an improved taste, it can be developed relatively quickly, and it utilizes proven science. Cities have long released their treated wastewater downstream into other bodies of water. Ballinger, for instance, releases treated wastewater into the Colorado River, which flows into San Angelo's primary water source, Ivy Reservoir.
We're providing it into the Concho so that we have what we call an environmental buffer, so that we're letting Mother Nature take care of some of the treatment aspects.
Securing the state permits could take as little as 2 to 3 years. Completing the entire project could take about 5 years and cost approximately $120 million. That includes upgrades to the water and wastewater treatment plants. Those improvements would be needed regardless of which new water source was chosen. When completed, the Concho River Water Project will produce about 7.5 million gallons per day. By comparison, the Hickory Aquifer is currently capable of producing 8 million gallons per day, although that is being expanded. San Angelo averages about 12 million gallons of daily usage. Work continues by the West Texas Water Partnership to develop a long-term source that can serve San Angelo, Abilene, and Midland. The Concho River Water Project will help meet local water demands for about the next 50 years.
This takes San Angelo a long ways down the road of water security. And when I mean a long ways, I'm talking generationally, 2060, 2070.
The project will also diversify San Angelo's portfolio of water sources. Because the city will not be dependent upon any one source of water, the community will be better able to weather times of drought. For SATV, I'm Anthony Wilson.
You ready, buddy? You ready? Here's a cool cat fact. Cats spend 2/3 of their waking hours grooming and cleaning themselves. So they're tidy pets. Cats, they're not just for crazy ladies.
The San Angelo Police Department has a long-standing tradition of duty, honor, integrity, and service to the citizens of San Angelo. The San Angelo Police Department is currently looking for the next generation of law enforcement officers who possess the integrity, determination, and self-sacrifice necessary to serve our community. For information on starting a career, please visit our website or contact our recruiting officer.
I'm feeling bad for people that living for the weekend, the type that wanna be dreaming but never got to see them. What a boring story, being worried about conforming, working and snoring would end up forcing me right off the deep end. I came to gain a brain and make a couple bucks, provide for those who've been riding close, yeah, that's just a plus. I'm condoning going forward for those with a motive, undivided focus, opened all the roads we're taking up. Try to get in the zone, gotta go grind, I'm better alone. They telling me I am a better me, I don't know why, but I fly on my own. Now I'm feeling up, I don't think I'm coming down. Even stars start to shining when they underground. Lamborghini dreaming, meaning that no one can stop me. Started spitting sloppy, now they all coming to watch me. Made a lane that kept me staying on my own. This is my throne, that's why I'm taking the high road. Whoa, no one knows the way but himself. People try to lend a hand, but they can't help. You gotta pick and choose, we are wearing different shoes. Be a bigger you, go and get it, never hands out. No, they don't own our show. They'd rather take the high road, high road, high road. They'd rather take the high road. Oh, I'm so no fly zone. They'd rather take the high road, high road, high road. the climb is only over when my knees are blowing now. We never going down, show 'em what I'm knowing now. They telling us to get a job and you can be rich. That's a load of notice, no one's ever showing how. The road will never be clear to steer for more than a living. You gotta see around the corner in order to finish. That's a route that we made. About my way, any master of the game starts with a horrible scrimmage. Dreams of living the dough, forming a team, we in it to blow. Cutting the tracks and running the max, so puffing the steam, we willing to tow.
Your monthly stormwater fee improves the quality of the water that flows into San Angelo's river and our lakes. That's also the water we drink. The fee funds street sweeping, mowing, river cleanups, and drain cleanings, all of which reduces the pollution and runoff. The fee also pays for sampling and monitoring water quality and for big stormwater projects such as the ponds along the Red Arroyo Trail. Failure to comply with state and federal guidelines could yield fines of $37,500 per day. When it comes to improving San Angelo's water quality, your monthly stormwater fee is paying off.
Today, we're going on a bike adventure. Woo!
Good morning, everyone. If we could all take a seat, please. It is 8:32 a.m. on today, May the 4th. We will call this meeting to order, and we will start, as usual, with our chaplain prayer and pledges. So, Gary and Marcella, would you please come forward and lead us in both?
To the members of to the mayor, members of the city council, and everyone here, good morning. Will you join with me in a word of prayer? Father in heaven, in the name of Jesus, we bow before you to say thank you for this day. We thank you for your grace and how you have provided for us each and every day. And as we assemble here to take care of the business of this city, I pray that you endow all of us with wisdom, and knowledge, and revelation and understanding, that what we do will glorify you and that you will be pleased. We thank you, dear Lord, also as we begin Police Week this week, that we honor all of the police officers and those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice to serve this community or whichever community they were in. We thank you and we ask you in Jesus' name. Have your way. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Tom's not coming. This morning we have 3 proclamations, and the first one will be the proclamation of May 9th through 15th, 2021 as Police Week, and May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day. Would all of you please come forward? Frank, David, Tracy, come on. In 1962, President Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which it falls as Police Week. This week pays tribute to officers who died in the line of duty and recognizes current members of law enforcement. The San Angelo Police Department will host a number of events to honor these men and women. Law enforcement agencies in San Angelo and Greene County provide vital public services and play an essential role in protecting those in San Angelo and Tom Green County. It is important to recognize their duty of safeguarding life and property, preventing violence and disorder, and guarding the innocent. Now, therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 9th through May 15th, 2021 as National Police Week, and call upon San Angelo citizens to participate in ceremonies commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who have rendered a dedicated service to their communities. I further call upon citizens of San Angelo to observe May 15, 2021 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in honor of those peace officers who through their courageous deeds have lost their lives in the performance of duty.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We will kick off Police Week this coming Monday at a flag raising ceremony at 10 a.m. at the Sheriff's Department, which is open to the public. Throughout the week, we'll have various meals donated by restaurants, and we'll close out the week on a Friday at 11 a.m. at Celebration Church with ecumenical service, which is also open to the public. On Saturday, the Concho four-wheelers will have a benefit barbecue I believe it starts at 11 o'clock a.m. at Celebration Church and it'll run till about 2. All donations for the plates will go to first responders. There's not a day go by that we don't think about these brothers that lost their life in the line of duty. This occupation is getting harder and harder. I think you'll notice that every time you turn the TV on, it seems like there's an officer that's gotten killed. Our job is getting more difficult. You know, trying to find somebody in this profession now is extremely difficult. I lose sleep at night, and I know my guys do. If a tragedy ever hits here in San Angelo, and we know it can, just like anywhere else, you've seen it. But I have comfort knowing that if it does, the citizens of San Angelo will be with us. The outpouring support that we have in this community is ungodly, and for that I'm very thankful. You don't see that in a lot of cities our size and larger. The support for the law enforcement and military here is outrageous, and for that I thank each and every one of you. Thank you.
I want to make sure I say this right, but before I start, will all of you here that are here for the motorcycle enthusiast or the national recognition of motorcycle safety awareness, please come forward, please. Ponderosa, MC, as members of the Region 5 Texas Council of Clubs and Independents, in collaboration and support of the National Safety Council, TxDOT, and local motorcycle enthusiasts, would like to remind all road users that the month of May marks a national recognition of Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. Motorists are reminded of the frequency and higher seasonal return of motorcycle enthusiasts to Texas's roadways during this month. Due to their smaller size, motorcycles may easily be overlooked in regular traffic flow. Motorists are encouraged to always be aware of motorcycles on all roadways when approaching intersections, when performing lane changes, as well as whenever motorists near or pass other vehicles, including motorcycles. Motorcyclists are encouraged to operate their motorcycles in a defensive manner and within the rules of the road. Motorcyclists ask that as motorists drive, they take a few extra seconds to look twice before motorcycles, both during Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month and throughout the year to promote overall safety. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in San Angelo, Texas, and encourage everyone to share the road safety. However many want to speak.
Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor and City Council. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Sarah Gypsy Serna, and I am one of the many constituents in San Angelo who regularly choose to exercise my civic rights, freedoms, and responsibilities by voting, as well as enjoy my rights as a motorcycle enthusiast riding in this area, state, and throughout our country. Today, I wish to extend my sincere thanks to our mayor and the City Council on behalf of the hundreds of other registered voters in our area who also ride. I am honored and privileged to once again accept San Angelo's proclamation recognizing the month of May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness, as many other cities across the country do. Because whether drivers consider us as recreational riders, motorcycle enthusiasts, or bikers, our families, co-workers, and associates simply know us as mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters, who all want to make it safely back to our families and homes at the end of our travels. It is a consideration that so many who drive in a four-wheeled vehicle or more often take for granted, yet one that we, who consider ourselves to be brothers and sisters of the roads, respect, because we have watched so many of us be injured or even lose our lives every year due to senseless and careless actions that could have been easily avoided. As I remind everyone each year, I ask that you scan the room momentarily and be reminded that the next time you get into your vehicles, you take just a few extra seconds on your journey to remember there's a life riding on those motorcycles. So I beg you, look twice for us, because it could mean the difference between life and death for a motorcyclist. Thank you.
Our next proclamation is a proclamation of National and Local Preservation Month. So Dell and Monica, are you here as well? Are you in the? Every year in May, national and local preservation groups, state historical societies, and business and civic organizations across the country celebrate Historic Preservation Month to demonstrate the social and economic benefits of historic preservation. Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has been a vital organization promoting the preservation of history, culture, and significant structures in historic downtown San Angelo, Texas. Some examples include Historic Mentions and the Historic Downtown magazine, which outline a brief history of downtown San Angelo's oldest and dearest buildings. The Walk Through Time banners placed across downtown streets to recognize the history of downtown properties as they were formerly utilized and how they are presently occupied. Construction of the historic streetlights in Gateway on Concho Avenue, the first established street in San Angelo. And advocating for the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone program, an incentive for property owners to improve commercial and retail properties while preserving the architectural and historic character of buildings and corridors. Downtown San Angelo, Inc. has received National Main Street accreditation for the 12th year in a row, a mark of success of this community's commitment to preservation. Therefore, I, Brenda Gunter, Mayor of the City of San Angelo, Texas, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as National Historic Preservation Month in San Angelo, Texas, and call upon citizens to support the continued efforts of preservation in our community. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the support, city staff. We're currently working on designation for a district in downtown that will be protected and preserve our history and culture, which is one of the main ingredients of our Main Street program. So thank you very much.
We will now move into the public comment section of the agenda. Issues or concerns not on the regular agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, address all comments to the dais, begin by stating their name and address or single-member district number, and limit their remarks to less than 3 minutes. Do we have anyone here today who would like to come forward for some public comment?
Morning.
Morning.
Brian Groves, Public Information Officer. I just want to let you guys know that we are publishing a new street webpage today. We're going to be releasing monthly street reports. We've been working with our Public Works Department over the last month to get a new webpage full of all sorts of different information regarding active projects, completed projects, future projects, things like that, in an effort to educate the public about what we're doing about our street infrastructure. So you can go to our website at costatx.us/streets. We'll be pushing that out later today to let everyone know about it. I just wanted to announce that here. So,
thank you very much. I would like to offer a couple of comments. One is I want to repeat the issue as it relates to Suddenlink. We continue to have problems with Suddenlink and continue to receive comments and concerns and issues with Suddenlink. And those people who have chosen to follow up and watch the video and work with Suddenlink have found some success for their issues, so I would encourage everyone to continue to do that. So we'd like to address the ongoing matter with Suddenlink Communications. We are fully aware of the dissatisfaction and frustration so many of you are experiencing with your service. We also understand that there are many complaints related to the lack of customer service. We want you all to know that we hear you and sympathize with your frustrations. When you entered into a residential service agreement with Suddenlink or a business service agreement with Suddenlink, you agreed to contract provisions related to how disputes would be handled. Those provisions require arbitration on an individual basis. As a result, the city is not able to intervene on behalf of the citizens, and any class action lawsuits against Suddenlink would be prohibited. Any disputes or issues an individual might have must be dealt with between that individual and Suddenlink. The city cannot do anything on behalf of the citizens of San Angelo regarding Suddenlink. We understand that filing a formal dispute against a company seems daunting to many citizens, so we have created information to assist you with the process. The city has outlined steps, including sample documents that residents use if they wish to file a formal notice of dispute and arbitration against Suddenlink. This information can be found at cosatx.us/Suddenlink. There you will also find a video interview and a step-by-step guidance on the notice of dispute and arbitration process, including sample forms that you may use to imitate this process. This information will be sent out to the public later this morning, and that was done. It is our hope that our citizens will utilize this information to formally voice their concerns to Suddenlink in the form required by your contracts. We will continue to advocate for better service on behalf of our citizens, but the strongest voice in the conversation is yours. So please continue to follow, go to the website, look at the information. As I said earlier, there are many citizens who have done that and have found a resolution to their issues. So it is working as a process. I also today want to thank the West Side Baptist Church. They have created crosses and placed crosses on the frontage road. If you look up on the hill at the 3900 Houston Hart Expressway, they are placing 300 white crosses to represent all the citizens who have died from COVID. There was a ceremony on Sunday. It was really well done, and they have put a lot of heart and soul into the crosses and the placement of it. And should there be any families who are not aware of it, please contact them at the West Side Baptist Church or call Joe, the pastor, at 212-3468 and visit with him about your family being recognized as well. Thank you. We will now move into the consent agenda. I will ask if there's any items that council would like to pull and have a discussion on. And so I'll start with Billy. Anything you'd like to pull?
Item C.
Uh-huh. Lane? Lucy?
Nothing to pull.
Harry? Tommy?
No, ma'am.
I'd like to also pull item D. So we will start by asking for a motion for approval of the consent agenda with the exception of items C and D. May I have that motion? Motion by Lane, a second by Lucy. Any public comment on the consent agenda with the exception of items C and D? With none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
With none opposed, a consent agenda is approved. We will go to item C. Consider approving change order number 1 to ES-01-21 Southwest Boulevard Improvement Project with Reese Albert, increasing the total contract amount by $737,606.32 and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Welcome, Shane.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Ms. DeWitt?
Yes, sir. Shane, just a couple of questions. And I read that this is, budgeted for in our rehabilitation reconstruction bond fund. But it says that we anticipated a pavement thickness of 2 inches, and it turns out it's 4 inches. How do we typically usually measure those?
Yes, ma'am. Our typical road standard that we have for the city when we actually go out and we build roads is actually with the profile of the road is actually shaped with the road base. And then we actually put a 2-inch, basically asphalt, it's HMAC, but an asphalt layer over the top of the flexible road base. And so when we do that, that's our typical, how we build all the roads in San Angelo with that same design standard. And so as we go through and we're doing these rehabilitation projects, especially on the portion where we're concerned about now, where we're just doing a mill and fill or a mill and overlay project on it, where we mill off the 2 inches of the asphalt layer and then we proof roll the flex base that's underneath it, and then we just add 2 inches back to it. And that's typically these rehabilitation projects and how they go. And as this project was designed, it was designed with that standard in mind, is that when this road was constructed, it used the typical city standard for its construction. However, when Reese Albert started milling down and getting further, we started down there by the Twin Mountainside and started milling back towards the loop. And as they did, the asphalt started getting deeper and deeper, and it started deviating from our typical standard, our roadway standard. And so as they did that and the further they went down, unfortunately, the deeper the asphalt started getting thicker and thicker. And for whatever reason, when that road was constructed, especially from about the Saddle Ridge area back down to the Rockbrook area, for whatever reason, when that section was built, they used asphalt to build the road profile instead of the road base. Again, we don't know why, when that was constructed, why they did it that way, but that's what we found after we got into it in the construction phase of it.
So Reese Albert didn't do that originally? Because we typically have used them forever.
Yes, and they very well could have back in the day. A lot of that down there closer to the loop was started in the mid to late 70s in those areas, and of course as we built out that direction to the south, small sections were built at a time, and again, I'm not sure of the reason why or not, and of course the people that were working at Reese Albert in the 70s are probably not there today. So.
And my other question, we usually, when we have these large projects, build in a contingency amount. Was that done with this, and does it cover $737,000?
We did build in a contingency. The contingency on this phase was a little smaller. It was only a $300 and something thousand contingency. So the contingency does not cover this amount. Of course, at no time were we expecting to have to double the thickness of our pavement. And so, and again, what we're looking at is the majority of this is just the material cost for the additional pavement.
Jane, the question I have and concern I have is as you get to the frontage road there on Southwest where the McDonald is and the gas station used to be, obviously that's highly trafficked and has been worn pretty thin. So do we have enough built in to the existing plan to make sure that there's a long life with that intersection and with the traffic that?
Yes, ma'am. That area right through there, all the way from Green Meadow all the way to the loop right there is scheduled for complete reconstruction in that area. So we'll take it down. We'll take the base all the way down 12 inches and we'll build back up. And so we'll come back up. New culverts coming, new larger culverts coming in there at the McDonald's where the Arroyo crosses right there at Southwest. And so we, again, increasing the flow capacity of that structure as well too. And so we should see, I would like to say we'll never see water on the street again, but I know that's probably not the case because we'll probably start backing water up again against the TxDOT structure as well. So we probably will still see some water on the roadway, but we're hoping to lessen that a lot with this new project.
And that's already built into what we've already approved.
It is. It is
correct?
already built into the project itself. Yes, ma'am.
Lane?
On that section, are we still planning on doing concrete, or is that in the works right by McDonald's?
Around the bridge will be concrete, and some of those lanes will be concrete. It's going to be a mixture in that area between asphalt and concrete. Where we have acceleration, deceleration, things like that, we'll go back in with concrete. But a lot of it's going to be both in that area.
Another question I had is, we all know that the asphalt is pretty soft. With it being 4 inches, is that why we may be seeing some failures more than the base failing, or the thicker you get? I'm not sure how that works, but is the thicker you get, the more viable it gets on braking and getting the sludge to?
Not necessarily. Most of the time, a thicker pavement section is actually more durable for traffic. However, when you start getting into those areas down closer into those expansive soils, as you get closer into the arroyo, you still have them moving. And of course, when you start getting braking action, even on thicker pavements, you're going to start seeing a lot of shoving and pushing. And that's what actually started the major issues in that Green Meadow area, were actually more of the shoving of the asphalt in the pavement versus the cracking and the braking and the water penetrating. Of course, we do have groundwater issues right there in that area, in that general area. And so we, as we're doing the reconstruction, we'll try to address those extra stabilization in that area to cover or to counteract the groundwater issues.
Do I have any further questions? Yes, Tommy.
Shane, speaking of intersections, 2 questions. One is timeline. The other goes to Lane's question also on the Southland. Southwest intersection. Will that all be concrete there?
Yes, that intersection will all be reconstructed as well, and that will all be concrete in that area, because we do have, again, a lot of those shoving issues in that area as well too.
Timeline wise, when will they begin to address those intersections?
The intersections right now, they've pulled off for about until school lets out for about the next 30 days. As soon as school lets out, they're going to in earnest really start the work around the railroad tracks right there at the school itself. There's some railroad crossing things that we have to deal with right there, and then they'll do the Southland intersection, and in the low water crossing area at McDonald's. They're going to try to tackle that this summer while school is out. So they're hopefully with school being out, there will be less daily traffic in the area.
You mentioned the school, which made another question pop into my mind. One of the very first calls I had after I was elected was from Lamar School. Is there going to be some reconfiguration or something from a safety standpoint? I know they have had problems in the past with drop-off and pickup there at Lamar. Is something going to be reconfigured there for an increased safety aspect for the school?
On Southwest? Yeah, on Southwest we are.
Shane,
yes.
Could we have you possibly not answer that since it's not related to Southwest Boulevard?
Okay.
But it is related, because I think there was a whole conversation about the school and sidewalks for the school, et cetera, in this project. So there was conversation about that school when we discussed the original plan.
We are adding sidewalks as part of the Southwest project. We are adding sidewalks at Lamar Elementary and reworking the crossing across Southwest for the school crossing for the children, and adding sidewalks on both sides of Southwest. right there from Dominion Ridge up to Twin Mountain.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments from council?
No, I move that we accept as presented.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tommy. Any public comment? With no public comment, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, with none opposed. Motion passes 6-0. We will move to item D. Good morning, Allison. Consider awarding WU-05-21 Professional Engineering Services, the Upper Colorado Regional Flood Planning Technical Consultant to HDR Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $946,200 funded by the Texas Water Development Board grant, and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and execute all related documents. Would you just talk through this?
Yes, ma'am. So City of San Angelo is we lie in the Region 9 Upper Colorado Flood Planning District. And so we are contributing to that process. We have done this similarly with the state water plan. Their political sponsor is the Colorado River Municipal Water District, or CRMWD. So they host the meetings, they facilitate getting that state water plan done. Similarly, in the state flood plan, the City of San Angelo has elected to be the political subdivision. So we're basically hosting and facilitating the state flood plan. So this money is appropriated by the state legislator, and then the funding has been allocated by Texas Water Development Board staff. And so our portion is $946,200, and that's for our entire region. I was trying to find how many counties lie in our region, but basically the Upper Colorado watershed, so us, Midland, Odessa, Big Spring, basically goes all the way to the western boundary of Texas for that Upper Colorado region.
So the City of San Angelo is not funding this whole $946,000?
We are not funding any portion of that. All these dollars are from the state legislator or Texas Water Development Board. And so we are just going to be the facilitators. We'll review the pay apps by the engineering or technical consultant, and then we will pay those as they're approved by the Region 9 board.
Okay. Do I have questions from council or comments? Then may I have a motion for approval of item D? Moved by Lane, seconded by Lucy. Any public comment on item D? With none, I will ask for a motion for approval. No public comment. Take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes 6-0. That completes our consent agenda, so we will now move into the regular agenda. Comments regarding items on the regular agenda may be made by the public when each item is discussed as outlined above. Applicants, proponents, and appellants are accepted from the time limit above and must limit their remarks to less than 5 minutes. A is consider accepting the city's fiscal year 2020 comprehensive annual financial report and single audit, and the presentation will be made by Armstrong, Backus & Company. And Gayla, I think you're here to present today. Please come forward. And Tina, both, whoever, whichever. Just reading the paper.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. On behalf of Armstrong, Backus & Company, thank you for once again engaging Armstrong Backus to perform your...
I want to see if that microphone is closer to you, because you have a soft voice, so it's a little hard to hear.
Thank you for letting us perform your audit for fiscal year 2020. Yesterday, the audit committee met, and I presented this information to them, and we talked about it in a little more detail than we will today, but I wanted to give you the highlights of your FY20 audit. Since this is a bit historical, we'll just talk about the highlights and not dig into a lot of the numbers. But the most important part is that our auditor's report presents what we call an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. So for FY 2020, you did get a clean opinion on your audit, which is good. And thank you to staff for helping make this audit such a success this year. There are very few changes between the FY19 audit and the FY20. If you were to take last year's report and compare it to this year's report, in many cases they look very similar. The only big change we made is that there was quite a bit of activity in the Lake Nasworthy Trust where money was transferred out for projects that are coming up. And because of that, it became what we call a major fund. And so it's presented separately in the financial statements, whereas in the past it was in the aggregate other column. So that's one change you'll see. Your results for 2020, government-wide, and this is on a full accrual basis, so this includes all of your fixed assets and all of your long-term liabilities and future obligations. For 2020, your total assets were $728 million. Your total debt was $522 million, of which $33 million is current, due in the next 12 months. And your total equity or net position was $203 million. Of that $203 million, $162 million negative unrestricted equity. That unrestricted equity is due to two things. Our accounting profession requires that you report your future obligations for your net pension liability and your OPEB liability, your retiree benefits. And those total $174 million. So without reporting those required liabilities, you would have a positive unrestricted net position. And those are just accounting entries that we have to make. Those are obligations that you've always owed, but only in the past several years have they been required to be reported in your financial statements.
I just want to make that clear because I remember it coming before us and changing the way we reported it, which changed statistically what it looks like as future obligations as it relates to projects versus personnel issues.
That's correct. And y'all are continuing to fund your pension liability for future and your OPEB, but currently the contributions towards those are less than what the liability is. But those have always been there. Those are just accounting entries that are being made. So your change in net position or your net income or loss for the year was positive. You had a $714,000 profit for the city as a whole, which is healthy. Also included in our audit is an audit of your one discretely presented component unit, which is Costa DC, and they had a positive change in net income of $980,000. So it was a very good year for the city. In addition to
Can we stop 1 minute?
Yes, ma'am.
In going through this report on page 17, because it's noted a couple times about the Lake Nasworthy Trust Fund, and I'm a little confused about the numbers because it says the city's governmental activities decreased by $19.4 million. This result is due primarily to a decrease in the market value versus the book value of the city's investment. So I'd like explanation of that. And the transfer of the Lake Nasworthy Trust Fund balance to the water and sewer funds, which I understand, but it on the next paragraph where it says business type activities, it talks about an increase by $20 million, which is primarily the result of the Lake Nasworthy Trust Fund, which that number doesn't match up with the number in the trust fund that was approved by the citizens for the benefit of the Lake Nasworthy Sewer Project and the Lake Nasworthy facilities improvement, recreational facilities.
So those numbers include other things other than that transfer from the Lake Nasworthy Trust to sewer. That transfer was $17.9 million, and so there was some other.
Even that $17.1 million doesn't correlate to the dollar amount that was approved by the citizens to be used for future projects. So the numbers don't match up relative to what we voted on, how we voted. So I just want explanation on that.
Mayor Tina Deersky, Director of Finance. The 17.9 million that you said is the voters approved the amount that was in that trust fund balance on a specific date. I believe it's May 5th of last year. And so whatever that balance was moved out. $6 million was moved into projects for future projects at the lake. And the remainder, whatever that was above and beyond the $6 million, was moved into the sewer fund for future sewer projects. So those two amounts together would equal whatever the balance was on that date that was approved by the voters.
Just to be clear on those numbers. Thank you.
The other question you had involved a change in market value on your investments. And so at 9/30/2020, historically and going forward, the city always holds their investments to maturity. That's never been an issue. But at 9/30/2020, the market didn't allow for much investment opportunity for long-term investments. And so
You mean the rate of interest?
the rate of interest was very low. And so a lot of the money was held in money market until it could find a long-term home to gain a higher rate. And so if you look at 2019 compared to 2020, the investment balance is much lower, the cash balance is much higher. So the city still had the funding, it's just it was converted from investments to cash, and the change in that is reflected in your income statement.
Continue.
Okay. Any other questions about the annual report before we move to the single audit? We also performed a single audit, which is required anytime a government spends $750,000 or more in federal funding. And for 2020, you had $3.4 million of federal expenditures provided to you through grant funding. And as a result, we have to come in and we have to do a compliance audit of those grants to make sure that you're spending the money in accordance with the grant agreements. We can do a calculation to pick which programs we test, and this year we tested WIC and the Airport Improvement Program. We had no compliance issues with either one of those. Historically, we've not had findings with those, and so it was a good single audit.
I'm not sure if right now's the time to talk about page 24. On page 24, it says we did $4 million in improvements to the sewer system. Can you define what those projects were?
Specifically, I think Tina can answer that better than I can.
Mayor, those are projects that were in progress during fiscal year 2020. The improvements to the water and sewer system were likely related to the improvements that were made to the streets for reconstruction. For example, on Bell Street, I think there was $12 million in water and sewer dedicated to that project, maybe some in addition at College Hill. So more than likely those projects were related to the street improvement projects and the infrastructure underneath.
Tina, would you guide us through this agenda item, please? You want something approved, right?
Well, we're not through. We'll do that when we get there. We're just not there
Yes, ma'am.
yet.
If you have more questions.
Yeah, I do. I'm sure other people do. There was also a chart, and I don't know if okay, it's on page 66. Okay, on page 66, it defines by year dollar amounts relative to each of the various water resources. Can you talk through that chart? Because in 2022 through 20 thereafter, there's $0 there. So can you talk about the spent $76,440 in 2021 and no dollars going forward, as well as the IV pipeline of $761,827 and no dollars in future years?
So the Spence and Ivy pipeline projects, those have been obligations that y'all have been paying for many years. And it just so happens that those contracts end in 2021 as far as the payments go. The water right still exists. It's reported as an asset on your balance sheet, but the payment for those water rights, that ends in 2021. So you have one more year payment to make for both of those. The Fort Stockton water rights is new for 2020. We added that asset on the books right at $46 million, and that will be paid out until the year 2071.
And then as it relates to the water rights we have, it's great that we know what water rights we have, but when the body of water has less water than when the water rights were negotiated, obviously we're not taking out the water we have the rights to because that body of water is depleted. And so we paid for water rights that we may or may not be able to use because of the depletion of water. So do we get a refund?
Especially since you're on your last payment, I doubt you get a refund.
Mayor, honestly, since that's an operational question, it would be probably a question for the Water Utilities Director or the Public Works Director.
Okay.
I assume you are talking about Spence Pipeline. So right now, yes, we are on one of our last payments towards the Spence infrastructure that was negotiated many decades ago. I can pull that information. I wasn't prepared to talk about Spence today, but I can pull that information and get it to you so that you can have a comprehensive look of what it is costing us.
Yes, because we don't get the water. So, and I realize we agreed to buy it decades ago, so obviously we have obligations, but it'd just be interesting to know based off of what the obligation and amount of water we expected to receive versus what we actually can take today and what that calculates out to in terms of cost.
Okay, I'll get that information to you.
Then on page 69, it goes through the various project descriptions, funding sources, the budget, spent to date, and balanced. But I'm concerned because if I look at the budget and then I look at spent to date and then I look at the balance, they don't add up. The numbers don't match. So if you took spent to date $15,992,711 and the balance is $8,263,930, and if you combine those two, it exceeds the budget of $22,812,318. So tell me how the calculations are made.
Probably doesn't add up. This was a last minute. This was a last minute change, and that's probably a typo. We can correct
Well,
that.
there are many of them, so there'd be many typos.
These numbers are hard coded in, and they're not calculated in the schedule, so it is possible that the addition didn't make the final edit.
So could we get an update and a correction on that page 69 for future conversation? Because if you take a look at it, it's very confusing with what it says we budgeted, what we've spent, and then what the balance is. So our balances exceed the dollars that we said we were going to spend.
Yes, we can definitely reissue that page and get it back out to you corrected.
Those are my primary questions. Do I have other questions or comments from council on other pages other than the ones I brought forward?
Part of the audit committee, I went through this yesterday. So.
That's what I did too. That's why I had the questions. All right. With no further questions, then do I have a motion for approval of the item A? Harry made a motion. May I have a second? Second by Lane. Any public comment? No public comment. Anna, did you have one? Yes, please come forward.
I have one. This is Anna Bartosh.
Just get a little closer to the microphone.
Anna Bartosh. When I was in college years ago, and I don't want to say how many years ago, but you can probably figure it out from your notes when the council approved the Spence pipeline. That was a pipeline to a dry lake, and I know as an active college student, we protested against that, but apparently they built it anyway. So now we're paying for that. That's just my comment.
The reason why I was asking the questions, because the cost of the water is different than what was anticipated back then, and not that we can correct it. It was approved and was time the water depleted, but we certainly want to continue to look into those things.
So that would be something for future reference.
Yes,
Don't build a
ma'am.
pipeline to a dry lake.
Yes, ma'am. We'll make a note of that. It's an asterisk beside it. Check to make sure that body has water in it.
That's great advice.
Yes.
And Mayor, I'd just like to clarify that we are making a motion to approve as presented with the change to page 69 for the minutes.
Yes, and we accept the page 69 obviously is part of this report, but we want an updated part, and we will discuss that later. But we need to have clarification on why numbers don't match. All right, with that, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Motion passes 6-0. Item B, discuss and consider an ordinance authorizing the issuance of City of San Angelo, Texas General Obligation Refunding Bond Sections Series 2021, establishing procedures and delegating authority for the sale and delivery of the bonds, leveling an ad valorem tax, providing for the security and payment of said bonds, and providing an effective date, and enacting other provisions relating to the subject. Tina?
Thank you, Mayor. Today we have an opportunity for a refinancing or a refunding of a current bond issue. This bond issue was related to the first phase of the Hickory Pipeline. The original debt issue was in the amount of $120 million through the Texas Water Development Board. The current principal is about $62.6 million. And so with that, the refunding would set us up to have a present value savings of just over $2 million, about $2.2 million, which is about $200,000 a year in savings to the Water Debt Service Fund.
Is that due to a reduced interest rate?
Yes, ma'am. It would reduce the interest rate similar to like a refinance of your house. Yes, ma'am. Again, you have the information before you. The prior interest rates were between 0.98% and 2.07%, expecting somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.04%. I did invite Vince Vial from Specialized Public Finance here to answer any questions you might have as well. So that's all.
I'm disappointed we didn't have greater savings. Could you explain that?
That's a question for Vince.
We'll take any of it we can get. To get a refinancing rate of 1.04% is pretty low. It's good.
Right. So with the passing of this ordinance, that would allow us to set up parameters, and we would go out with Vince and his folks to get bids on that, and we wouldn't actually come back to council, but the closing date I think would be July 15th on that.
But it's set in stone. In other words, what we present today and the refinancing rate, regardless of when you close it, is a set number of 1.04%, correct?
No, ma'am. That's what Vince and his folks will go out and get bids on, and I'll let him answer that question a little more thoroughly. You don't mind?
Yes, and then Lucy has a question. Do you want to ask Tina first before Vince goes ahead?
I just needed a quick question, Tina. I didn't hear what you said the balance was.
Oh, okay. The current principal balance is $62.6 million, and it started at $120 million back in 2012, I believe.
Correct.
The question is, I want to know if we can expect that refinancing rate will be the 1.04%, or is that being optimistic and trying to make us feel good today that we're going to save $2 million, or can I count on saving $2,183.73?
Very good. Mayor, members of the council, for the record, my name is Vince Vio with Specialized Public Finance. What we're doing in this case is we're asking the council to consider approval of a parameters ordinance. And that parameters ordinance sets specifications for certain levels of savings that we have to achieve before we can execute this trade in the marketplace. It designates your city manager, your assistant city manager as the pricing officers. It delegates that authority to them, that once we can achieve these goals, we'll contact them. They have final say, and then we can execute that order in the marketplace. What we're looking at in this presentation is a market rate of 1.04% on the refunding obligations. Those are at current rates. But that gives us what we like to look at, a net present value savings of 3.2%. We have got a criteria in the marketplace. Before we do a refunding, we have to meet or exceed a 3% level present value savings before we'll execute a trade. So having said that, Mayor, we're right there on the cusp. So these numbers that we're showing you of about $215,000 per year in savings, little under $2.2 million in overall savings, or just over $2 million in present value savings, that's where we are right now. We can't go much below that and still meet that 3% present value criteria.
I'm fine if we can't go below it. I get it. I just want to know we got it.
Exactly. And we cannot go below that 3% present value savings. We have to execute this trade in the marketplace before we can get that done. So we're at this level. That's where we are. Otherwise, we can't do it.
Do I have further questions from council? All right. Then may I have a motion for approval of item B? A move by Lane, a seconded by Harry. Public comment, please. With none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Mayor, big thanks to Vince and Tina for working on this, saving this money. We appreciate y'all.
We will now move into a closed session, the executive session of the. We don't have one, so we're not going to go. All right, then. So we'll do item A, follow-up and administrative issues. Consider items discussed in closed session if necessary. B is a discussion of upcoming council meeting dates abutting holidays, June 1st, Memorial Day, July 6th, and September 7th. I recommend that instead of doing the first Tuesday, we do the first Thursday of that week. So, and consistently. So if June 1st is Tuesday, then June 3rd would be that Thursday. July 6th is a Tuesday, then July 8th would be the meeting date, right? And then September 7th would become September 9th for our meeting. Does that work for everyone?
Check my busy calendar.
September, I believe, would be the 9th. Yes.
I believe we have John James coming up to talk about planning calendar.
We actually do have some items that mailed notices went out actually yesterday notifying property owners of cases that will be coming before you on the June 1st meeting. So either we would either need to keep it on June 1st or we would have to re-prepare all of those notices and mail out.
We got to get our calendars together here, don't you think? Okay. So with that said, it sounds like to me we're going to have a meeting on June the 1st. We will then have a meeting on July the 8th. On September the 9th. Is everybody in agreement? Do I need to take a vote?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. May I have a motion for the dates I've just repeated? So Tommy, you're making that motion. Do I have a second? Second by Lane. Any public comment on those dates? With none, we will take a vote to approve those changes in city council meetings. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. We will now move into item C, which is discussion of proposed budget workshop dates. July 13th is enterprise funds and August 10th general fund. Now we need to first of all check to make sure that those dates work for city council members. And I had recommended instead of doing just 2 dates, we might do 3 dates instead because they.
I've talked to Tina about that, so.
Okay, Tina, you want to talk about that?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, just something to mention on the August 10th, which would be a Tuesday between council meetings, we can definitely do that, and we would propose to do general fund on that day. Or last year, we have sales tax come in on August 11th, so last year we decided to do it on the Thursday following, so we had a little bit more information under our belts, but we are perfectly happy to do it either on the 10th or the 12th for general fund, so that's one thing to consider. And then for an additional workshop, we would propose July 27th for other funds, similarly to what we did last year as well.
Any concerns or questions from council on that, or can you live with that? All right, we will accept those dates.
Yes, ma'am. So August 12th is good for you?
Yes.
Thursday? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Instead of August 10th. And then we would add the 27th of July. And we would maintain the July 13th date. All right, with that, do I have any announcements in consideration of
We
future?
get a motion on those budget workshop dates as well?
May I have a motion on those dates?
So moved.
Tommy, second. By Lucy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. We will move into item D, announcements and consideration of future agenda items. Do we have any? Then may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved by Tommy, second by Lane. Any comments from public? If not, may I take a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0. This concludes the meeting of May the 4th, 2021.